All right, folks, we are just 3 days away. That's just three sleeps, three more sleeps until the Canes begin their ACC schedule. We got Georgia Tech this week. Miami's favored by 20 some odd points, about 3 touchdowns. Personally, I think that's a touch high. But Bama Kane, you said exactly what I was just thinking. Don't want to see us play down to the competition. Well, Bama Kane, that is one thing I've noticed from this team that we have not done. We have certainly faced teams that are inferior opponents, and we have not played down to them one bit. And we've been pretty consistent with that. So that's been a nice surprise. But before we bring our guest on, I see him in the waiting room right now. Got to kick this off with some cafecito. While I do that, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, do all the things you know what to do. Cheers, family. Delicious. All right. Without any further ado, let's bring on our esteemed guest, Mr. AO.
What's happening?
What's going on, my brother?
Now, I do got a question for you. If you are drinking a cafecito, which I believe is Cuban coffee, that means you're going to be up to like 7 a.m. Because if it's anything like these pods I'm drinking upstairs, you're going to be well wired. I'm impressed.
See, that's the thing about Cuban coffee. If you grew up in a Cuban household, Cuban American household, we drink this with our grandmothers, like at night before bed, bro. Like this ain't nothing. Whoever can attest to this in the chat, please do.
Nice. Like that's
normal.
impressive.
It's normal to like after dinner to have one of these, please. That's normal.
Yeah, I have mine in the morning, and I'm running. Like it's good to go. Like I used to drink a pot of coffee a day when I was out in the field, and now like one of these little pods of like that Cuban coffee, man. I don't know how y'all do it at night because I'm ready. And then the crash really isn't that bad, which I really like that. I like the Cuban coffee a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, same here. But thank you for coming on, first of all.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. But we start our ACC schedule this week. We start with Georgia Tech, who I thought was looking pretty good, at least their offense. Those first few games, you know, they looked decent. I was like, okay, this is not going to be a pushover, but then they got pushed over by a very, very, very inferior. No disrespect to them, but let's call a spade a spade. Bowling Green was 1-3 going into that game. Shouldn't have had a shot in that game, but man, they just ran it down their throats the entire game. Georgia Tech looked bad tackling. They just looked rattled mentally. I mean, did you catch any of that Bowling Green game or catch any highlights?
I caught some of the Bowling Green. I watched a lot of the condensed Wake Forest game, and when I was watching it, there was a couple of things I was picking up on that really seemed like Bowling Green highlighted. I thought Wake Forest was able to really run on Georgia Tech's defense. They had this really kind of nice design delay run where the QB would hold on to the ball for quite a bit of time, almost like an RPO, but it was always going to go to the running back. But that delay just created problems for Georgia Tech's defense, which I think Bowling Green just kind of capitalized on it by seeing that you could run smash mouth football on them. And and have we not seen that a couple times where the better talented Miami team goes and plays these kind of, we got a little bit of hype, a little bit of success, everybody starts feeling themselves, and then all of a sudden, boom, reality. So I think this is the most dangerous you're going to see Georgia Tech, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you. Their weakest point is definitely trying to stop the run. I think they're almost dead last in that category, and they're not too far behind trying to stop the pass either. Their defense just in general is not good. Their offense, their passing game really is their strength.
Yeah.
But as far as what you've seen from this team, from Miami, first 4 games, you know, we're starting to get a little bit of attention, at least in the ACC. I see a couple of guys, you know, a couple of these analysts, these experts starting to say, hey, don't sleep on Miami. They are starting to pop up, you know. They're starting to pop up. I'm not going to feed into it just yet. We still got a ways to go. We're just a third into the season. But tell me, what have you seen from this team? That
Yeah,
is different. That is different from years past, because we've had hype during a season where we get on a little winning streak, we start to feel ourselves a bit, and then we lay an egg against an inferior opponent. It happens every year. But how is this team different?
I think the biggest difference I've seen is competition. And I'm not saying like just competition with like on the field. You know, these guys are just very competitive with each other at a constant level, but they also have fun with each other too. I think that's a big difference I've seen is the competitive spirit. It rolls with you throughout the whole week. So you hear it from the coaching staff on the pressers, you know, that this guy's trying to beat this guy out still. They're hanging out with each other, they're running races with each other, they're doing this with each other, you know, but they're always either racing against each other, they're playing with each other on Madden, they're going out and they're, you know, doing like the workouts, so they're trying to knock everything out as a group. And I think that's the difference of what you've seen before is the previous Miami squads, like we just mentioned with Georgia Tech, they felt themselves. You go out in Miami, oh, maybe I'll take a little Thursday and we'll go out maybe Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like they start showing up at places, feeling themselves a little bit more, and then all of a sudden there's a reality, you know, of this is a real Miami squad again. And like you said, I love the idea of don't pick us. Just keep everything under the radar, keep that chip on your shoulder, keep remembering 5 and 7, keep that mentality because that's what's going to purvey you through this bye week to really know which team are you really going to be. Are you going to be the previous Miami squads or is this a new foundation?
Yeah. So camaraderie is what you're noticing, which I agree. I noticed the same thing. Definitely more of a family togetherness that you feel with the team and the coaches. The coaches seem to get along with each other and with the players better than last year. The main difference I noticed though is in past years, say we go up against a Duke, a Georgia Tech, a Virginia, what have you, and you're like, look, we have this Miami speed and athleticism. We are the superior team athletically, talent-wise. Why don't we just put it on these guys? And every once in a while we would, but more often than not, we'd either win ugly or we'd lose a heartbreaker. And it would happen every year. But the one main difference I'd see with this team, as opposed to those teams may have been the more talented team on the field. This team not only is more talented, but also way more physical than those teams. I mean, this team is straight up line up, hit you in the mouth. The whistle blows, line up again, hit you in the mouth again, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, our guys like to hit, and it's not just the defensive guys. Like, one of my favorite plays of the year so far has been our linemen grabbing our running backs and dragging them further. Like, I love that because you're starting to see that a little bit in the NFL now too. Like, there was one of the, I think it was the Patriots, or no, it might have been the Patriots and Dolphins game where when the lineman just grabs the running back and literally pulls them to a touchdown. And I was really surprised that the commentators didn't grab, you know, the lineman, give the lineman some love. But I was like, I love that our team is doing that kind of stuff because that's going to really help them sell their stock, you know, down the line. But like you said, these guys love to hit. And how many times did you, like you said, we had the more talented team, but we wanted to be pretty. You know, we were more worried about being the gas station pictures on a Saturday night than we were grinding it out on a Saturday afternoon. You know, it was way more of our guys want to hit you and you're going to remember it. Like after that Miami quarterback was kind of talking, I haven't heard really a whole lot of people talk because I think they know like this ain't that same squad. Like this ain't the pretty boy squad. This is a squad that's going to you really don't want to come and talk because James Williams really does have a nice chip on his shoulder and he's playing smart but aggressive still, and I love that.
Yeah, I like that he's playing. He's not trying to do too much. You know, him just staying within his game, not trying to do too much, is still better than most people on the field.
Oh yeah.
So he's got to remember that. But yeah, man, this is honestly the first time I can say in close to 20 years that we are pretty much the more physical team in every game and every game in our schedule, all the way until, God willing, ACC championship. But Yeah, like first time I would say since like 03, 04, maybe 05 tops when we had like Eric Winston and guys like that
Hmm.
on the O line. No, this team, oh my God, it's just wonderful to see us. Like it's not sexy, but we're just steamrolling guys in the trenches.
Have you noticed people duck down when we're coming to hit them?
Yeah,
Like ever since that James Williams and Jaden Harris were coming in, like almost getting ready to do like the shark attack to one receiver. Every other receiver I've seen that like sees those two coming, they're like, "No, I'm good. First tackle it, just put me down. It's fine. I'll
yeah,
just roll over. I'm good."
I'm good. I'm good with no yak. I'm okay.
I try to be on ESPN for that right now.
Yeah. Let's I think Mitch has a question here. I think Mario lets the players kind of decide if recruits who didn't want to be a Cane come from the portal, or is it Mario's decision only? And would he bring a player who didn't pick us and used us?
Hmm.
I don't know if I read that correctly. Let me go back and read that again. Mario lets the players kind of decide if recruits who didn't want, or is it Mario's? Are you following that?
Yeah, so I think he kind of means like let's say like a Cormani, right? You got a recruit that could have came to Miami, right?
Yeah.
Used us and left not on the best of notes. Do you think
Now I
Mario
know what he
alone
meant by used us.
makes the
Okay,
decision,
gotcha.
or you think he grabs the players and says, "Hey, what about bringing this guy back in?" That's a good question. I
That is a good question, Mitch.
personally, or go ahead, John. I'll your show. My bad.
No, it's fine. Totally fine. Look, I mean, obviously, you take it case by case. I can't speak to Cormani. I don't know. I still don't know. Jury's still out if we dodged a bullet or if he's going to be a first rounder. We still don't know. But yeah, I think now Mario and the players kind of have that bunker mentality that it's like, hey, would you guys want this? I mean, if I'm Mario, that's what I would do. It's like, hey, would you guys welcome this dude in if we went and got him? I mean, that would be the smart thing for do.
Yeah, I think my thought is you have the leadership council from the team for that reason. So because one, what Mario, Alonzo, the coaches, Radakovich, they're not on social media like that, right? But these guys are. So they're gonna know if like these guys are leaving on a really bad note or they're kind of leaving on a pretty decent note, where they're going to know like the guy's attitude a little bit more in depth than what we might know. So I like that idea of Mario bringing in that, and like you said, it provides that trust and bond between coach and player, and says, hey, this is your guys' team. We're going to present you the ones that we found that we would like to bring over. But yeah, you guys have a call on this too, or of maybe some pros and cons of bringing these guys. So I think you do bring them in on that.
Yeah. As far as Georgia Tech specifically, is there anything that makes you a little bit nervous about this game?
Yeah, man. Like, so I wrote down pros and cons. Like I was there, like I said, there was some really there. I think their wide receivers are an issue. I think that's what keeps them in the game is they don't have the greatest line, like kind of like what we saw before. It's literally like a past Miami team. Not a big line, but their offensive coordinator is really good at getting guys the ball and getting out to the sideline. They utilize that sideline to perfection. A lot of the throws that King makes straight to a sideline throw. It's very hard to defend that. And then you throw in, you get so used to trying to cover that sideline. That's when they throw a cross at you, and boom, the guy's now over the middle open. So I think they did a really good job of utilizing that speed. And then they throw, since your running back isn't really the greatest getting out from the line, they use that big rumble tumble tight end to kind of use that. This is how we can chew some clock up type deal too. I think their offense is a problem, but it's a good problem to have, especially before you walk into North Carolina. So I like this test.
No, I think it's a perfect test. It's not like a Bethune-Cookman, but it's just enough of a test to kind of keep us focused and motivated. If I read the stat correctly, though, not that this is a ranked opponent, but I know Miami, whenever we have a great home atmosphere, I feel like even in recent years, we've performed better. In the last, I think 7 times we've played a ranked opponent at home, we're 6-1. So ranked opponent, of course, you're going to have a better atmosphere. This Saturday, I feel like it might even be better than the A&M atmosphere. I have a feeling. I think A&M drew like 49,000 officially. This is going to be north of like probably like 55,000. That's just my that's what my gut is telling me. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, we were kind of discussing that today. I know, especially it being a nighttime game, a lot of those guys that are down there felt like it'll be a little cooler out. That alone just draws more people into the stadium. Somewhere going between above 50. No one thought above 60, except for one person thought above 60. It being the blackout game, it being primetime TV would become a draw too. They said that the tailgates will be out of this world on that kind of night, where it's kind of more of the centerpiece of the evening. I think the same thing. Like, I think this will be one of those calling card games where you can electrify the home field advantage. And what I really think is a huge difference too, that a lot of people haven't really noticed, is we talked about on the show last week, is Miami has a DJ for the first time in like, God, maybe 9 years that I counted, when I kind of looked for like who was a previous one. But they weren't there for the Texas A&M game, but they are there for the rest of the games. So like the atmosphere, I heard, has been, way better when he's actually taken over. So I'm hoping that will be a little bit more of it. You get people to have fun. That gets more people riled up. That makes the home field advantage a lot better. Harder for like Georgia Tech to get their counts off. That means you got a foot advantage, and that's huge in those kind of games to keep your momentum up.
Yeah. No, and it being a bye week, I know Michael Becker brings it up, that I know coming off bye week, we haven't done well, but I believe it's different. I think they're focused on this game. I think we're going to kill them. If we come in focused, we'll blow them out like we have the last 4 games, including A&M. I can sit. It wasn't a blowout, but man, we dominated that game, in my opinion. Take away the 2 early, really bad special teams errors, bro. That was our game.
Right. You spotted them 14. We really, really did. And
honestly, yeah.
Look how well they're doing against their competition. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where you're passing the test to yourself. And I think that's kind of been the difference too, like what we kind of talked about earlier. We're not worried about everybody else anymore. We're not worried about Clemson's. We're not worried about Florida State's. We're not worried about everybody's hype. This team is worried about themselves and getting better each game. Like, everybody's, presser has always said the whole same thing. We're just worried about this week. They don't say anything, to put ourselves on their locker room material. And I think that's huge, where it shows maturity. It shows that they're in, like you said, they're focused in on the game at hand. And then you add on a crowd like Miami's in the back, man, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous combo.
Yeah.
Especially for recruiting.
I know, and the team knows that those recruits are going to be there. They're well aware. They're well aware what's at stake here. It may not be FSU on Saturday, but they know this is a big game, for a lot of other reasons. So I don't think they're going to come in sleepwalking. I think, the black uniforms, the atmosphere, I think it's a recipe for success for our guys, especially if it's a dry game, if there's no rain, beautiful weather, adds even more to it.
Yeah,
I think. But speaking of bye weeks, I was looking it up really quick. Mario Cristobal was 5-0 coming off bye weeks in his years at Oregon. Takeaway, I don't remember if we won our bye game or our game coming off a bye week last year. I think we did. I think Mario is 6-0 coming off of bye weeks, something like that. So, I know we've been. I think in the Manny Diaz era we were 2-5 coming off bye weeks. So it just shows you the lack of focus we had. But that's just not him. Not just him in over the years.
Right.
But you've seen a complete 180 in just the culture and the level of focus. They should, they went up to Temple, and man, that was a business trip. There was no messing around whatsoever. You blinked and it was like we were up 3 touchdowns. Which with the crappy weather,
right?
there were there were 17 people in the stadium. I guess because of the incoming storm, nobody showed up. I guess everybody fled. There was a little pocket right behind our sideline, a pocket of Miami fans. That was it. And like a tiny little student section, whoever did decide to show up for Temple. There was no atmosphere at that game.
Yeah, and when I was watching on TV, like I was kind of like, man, I wonder if this is like when you're watching the game, you don't really know what side from the stadium you're really kind of looking at. And I was like, man, I know all the guys were all meeting up, before the Temple game because of the weather and stuff too. And I'm like, I know we're there, so this must be the home side. And then I finally saw like the student section, and yeah, I mean that's tough. I mean, it is extremely tough to, especially the weather too, But like you said, I think this is the most I've seen backups involved in a game in the first 4 games. Is you've had them in 3 games already, which is awesome, and that's going to pay so much dividends down the road. You've pretty much stayed pretty healthy for the most part for our key guys too, and then you're getting them all back as you're walking in here. And John, we haven't even had to open up the book yet. The full playbook has yet to be opened. So I think there's so many pros that are coming off of this schedule so far. I think it's hard for us to even look at it all because it's so new compared to what we had over the last couple of years, where, like you said, we're going from having scrimmages almost every week where these guys are hitting each other to, if you think about like 4 years ago, you couldn't get them to tackle. They were tackling and doing a wrestling match before their first practice. You know what I mean? Like, that's the shit we used to do back in the day, is like try to hype each other up and know that we really didn't want any of that kind of problem. But then now you have these guys are like, I want all the smoke and then some. And it's hard for us to believe it. It's where Miami fans are like, well, Texas A&M game, I'll go buy some tickets. And now it's like, well, UNC game, let's see if they're really there. You know what I mean? It's because it's hard for us to really say, hey, this is not the Cardiac Canes anymore. It's tough, and I get that. But this team is legitly focused on winning and winning only.
I just really hope that continues Saturday because, Georgia Tech, I feel like we beat them more often than not over the years, but man, I feel like whenever they got us, it was embarrassing because they were never the better team. Let's be honest.
Right. But here's the thing though, too. Remember the last time they actually got us? Remember our biggest problem at that time was, remember the locker room had been separated, right? With the younger guys who were the bulls and the older guys who were like, well, I deserve this spot anyway. Right? Yes. And that's when the whole main divide started really happening was, who are you going to play? Are you going to play the guys that have been here or the guys that are freshmen? And on this squad, I just don't see that happening because I do think like if you're a freshman, if you're a starter, if you're messing up, you're pulled right then and right there. But you'll get coached up on the sideline. They're not going to just say, "Don't come near me." You see that every time they score, every time they make mistakes, guys are all getting coached up on the sideline, which is what we didn't see those previous staffs do, were to build the guy back up. That's why we ended up having a 6 and 8 receivers where they couldn't get out of their own head because there was really no one around them that was in there trying to rebuild them as they fumbled it. They just were like, the world's against me. I'm against me. I make another mistake. Now what I do? I think that's been the huge difference is we're taking care of our players mentally, and that helps them perform so much better physically on the field now.
Oh, the drops issue that we had for a few years, that was all mental.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're not having that problem at some of the different locations they're at right now. They're because they forgot, to have a little bit of fun, and then they have those different, fresh slate type deal. But I just felt like people forget that there's Miami pressure. It's hard to go to a Legends camp and see all those greats and be like, I have the dropsies while Ed Reed's watching me. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to get in your head a little bit.
For sure. And I was just thinking about our last loss against G-Tech. I want to say it was the 2019 game where that punter, he took the snap and he just threw it over the top because someone forgot to cover the gunner on the side.
And they just watched it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, he scored. And the bad part is that we just sat back and then watched them come right back in the game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's what weeks it didn't really matter. If you didn't make mistakes, you weren't always rewarded for that either. So I think different regimes have different strengths. I think one of our biggest strengths is the fact that we're disciplined. Plus, we're accountable for building you up, but also humbling you when you do make a big play. Like, hey, you scored, great, but get right back out there and score again. You know what I mean? Like it helps them. And I love that about the staff is that they really feel like they took that like us against the world. And they've really engulfed that. Like, if you see these guys, like offense is talking to defense is talking to special teams. They're not all just kind of all along the sideline, not talking to each other. They're all watching the game, or they're talking to each other about what they're going to do next. I love that.
Yeah, me too. But moving ahead to the guys that, like you said, there's going to be some guys coming back from injury. Finally, thankfully. Is there anybody in particular you're looking forward to seeing in this game? And moving forward, who are you looking forward to seeing get more snaps? It could be someone coming back from an injury, or it could be just a freshman that hasn't really played a lot yet.
Yeah, I think I got two, but they're probably going to be everybody's answers right now. The easy one is Cam. I mean, I think if you're going to beat Georgia Tech and you have to take out those wide receivers, Cam is the game is going to very much depend on Cam's play, because that's how their receivers get you. Is they utilize that you're not talking and they can attack your soft spots. But also, when those errant throws are made by King, you have to have a safety that can pounce on that. And because they make a lot of mistakes in their games. It's just, is your DBs really where they should have been to capitalize on those mistakes? And I think that's going to be a huge Cam Kitchens deal, is keeping that group organized, talking, fluid, make the transition if they're going from one to another. That's going to be his game to kind of solidify himself as Cap. But for me, I think personally, I'm excited for the tight end room. That's my favorite room right now. Like, running backs I love, but the tight end is so utilized in the offense that if we see that passing game for the tight ends open up, sky's the limit for the team. Where I think we're even more dangerous than what we're already showing. So I think, having Arroyo back is going to be massive in that aspect.
Yeah, Arroyo's the first one that comes to mind for me. From everything I'm hearing and reading and stuff, it's very likely that we'll see him at least get a few snaps in this game. Just kind of get his feet wet, not throw him out there in a big game, throw him into the fire right away. Let's get him warmed up a little bit.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see him because, like you said, we haven't opened up the book all the way. There's packages that are designed for the tight end to make a big play, and I can't wait to see those. And we know TVD and Elijah have some kind of rapport. We've seen them connect on a few big plays in the last couple of years. So that's one. Another one I'm really looking forward to is Chris Johnson getting more snaps moving forward. Because, like Larry Bluestein always says, this is one of my favorite quotes: "You cannot leave the Lamborghini in the garage.
I love that.
You got to put him out there." And he is very much like a Lamborghini with a souped up engine and everything. Like seriously, I mean, he's one of those, he has a crease and he's gone. He's absolutely gone. He reminds me of the other Chris Johnson that used to play for the Titans. I don't believe there's a relation, but yeah, he reminds me of that guy. Same kind of similar body type, similar speed, ridiculous. I mean, definitely a future big play guy. And then I'm already getting excited about the upcoming class. You got Chris Wheatley Humphrey, who has, if you had to give him Madden ratings, Chris Johnson's like a 99 speed. Chris Wheatley Humphrey's like a 97 speed. Still elite, like both of them. Like, I can't wait. I'm getting excited.
I don't know if you see the show like a couple months ago, we were talking about some of our hot takes, and one of my hot takes was I want to see, and I'm sure we'll get there once we're fully at full health and full strength. But bro, I'm saying right now, I would love to see Miami come out in a 2-back set, and then I also want to see us come out in a 3 tight end set. Like, I don't see how you would cover a 3. We have legitimately 3 tight ends that can do almost anything on the field. But you're bringing Riley in, you're bringing Arroyo in, and you're bringing McCormick in, and you're saying one of you is going to block, two of you are going to go for a pass, and they're going to do it at an elite level. And how are you going to guard that? You going to throw linebackers on them? Riley's got speed. So does Arroyo. Like, you can't throw certain guys on them. I mean, they create so many mismatches with this offense that I think the sky's the limit, because if you're an offensive coordinator that's already creative and hasn't had to show diddly for the first 4 games, and still no one can predict what you're doing, then you're adding in this wrinkle of, I can show you exactly what we're going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, that creates a whole new element for us too. I love it. You got me hyped again.
Yeah. It's like those really old school jumbo packages with like tight ends and running back and a fullback, and just, because you can also just run it straight up the gut with those 3 tight ends. Just, you know what?
Yeah.
Have them all block. Let's steamroll these guys.
No receiver, just here comes 2 of our backs, thunder and lightning. Here comes 3 giant mammoths of tight ends. What are you going to do about it? Like,
I dare you to stop this.
And tell me you legitimately have 11 guys who really want to play defense against that, who are really going to be like, over a quarter, they're not going to be worn out. Because remember, too, is we can take those 2 running backs out and replenish them with 2 guys who are just as dangerous as soon as they touch the ball. So it's not just a 2 deep. We're talking 4 to 5 deep running back room right now. Like, that's ridiculous, man. Like, that's where we're kind of at right now so far. And we're in year
2.
Yep. Imagine what we'll look like in year 4 and 6 and 8. Ridiculous, bro.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but yes, I've thought about it many times. And not just those guys. We may see Coach Cristobal hinted at seeing Trevante Citizen soon.
I saw that.
Like, oh my God, if he gets to play,
and that's like Flo's favorite guy on the whole roster. You know, is I've seen like very little of the film, but from what I've seen, I'm like, dude, I see why everybody in this whole Discord chat talks about this guy. It's not hard to see that as soon as he touches the ball, just put 6 up on the board. Like, don't worry about it. Just tell your operator just to 6 each time. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can only contain these guys so long.
Yeah, no, and in that group of 5 guys, honestly, there's 3 that just on look alone look like top tier, like SEC running backs. You know, you got Don Chaney, he's got the look. Trevante Citizen, as well as an 18-year-old freshman, looked the part, looked like a grown man, and Mark Fletcher, 6'2", 225 or whatever he is. It's such a refreshing change to see this kind of like size and freakish athleticism, because that's what a UM running back should look like. That's what the running back room should look like. You know what I'm saying? And
because of last year, you pissed them all off too. So they're hungrier than what they would have been if we would have had a successful year too. So I mean, like, yeah, it sucks going through a season like that, but these coaching staffs will always tell you, like, you have to have that kind of season to really get the guys in those rooms that are really actually hungry for not just, you know, the instant gratification of being a Hurricane, having that U on your helmet. It's knowing exactly what you just what happened to you is I just got dog walked, 7 times in a season, and that can't happen again. And then they have that mentality in the off season. They have that mentality in the season. And like you said, they're able to look at games like this and realize that there's so much more on the table for them too, like recruiting, and their NFL aspirations go up because of all that kind of stuff too. So I think you're brutally right. Is there's so much to this team that why not? Why not get excited again for it?
Agreed. One last thing I want to go over with you. I didn't prepare you for this one. This is because I want to get your gut up. You've probably gone over this on your show. I'm not sure. You probably talked about this with other people, but I can't remember the last time that I can't find any analyst, any expert, anybody online that can agree on who honestly are the top 5 teams in the country are. Everybody has a different answer. I love it. I love the parody. I'm so glad it's not Georgia, Bama, Ohio State. Georgia, Bama, Ohio State. Like, it's been that for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know what's leveled the playing field. I think NIL has had something to do with it, but also just, everybody's run comes to an end at some point. I think it's more that.
Yeah.
Clemson, definitely their run is coming to an end. Saban, he's getting there, unless he hires some ace offensive coordinator for next year and gets some great quarterback, which he might, but we'll see. Georgia, they have not looked great. I have an idea of what my top 5 would be. My question to you is, if you have to give me a top 5 right now, who's looked the best to you on the field this year? Don't take last year into account, because that's what all these rankings do. They take last year into account. That's why Georgia's number 1.
Right.
Who's your top 5, like, right now?
Yeah, be a little surprising is I watched a lot of the Pac-12 games. Honestly, I think Washington is your number 1 right now. They're just
really
insanely complete. Their speed, I think that's what the difference is too, is their speed. Like, everybody's always been like, oh, well, their speed always gets countered by the SEC's power. And over the years, like you said, like, the parity was there, right? You don't have that, because now Oregon and Washington and Oregon State, they got big chunky dudes on the line now, where it's not just a slim down dude playing as a lineman, and then he has to go up against an SEC lineman, and then they get blown back out of the water, and there goes the speed element. These teams are actually complete. Now, USC, I think, is a little, that defense is really tough, because I don't think that that game with Colorado was what it really showed. I think if you go back and watch, they're up 21-0, and they're all checked out. They're like, this game is in the book. We're done. Like, we can just keep putting points on these guys. And you could I thought that they legitimately at halftime put in subs, because it looked like a totally different defense, or they hadn't made any adjustments at all. But I think Washington's up there. I really like USC still. I think you're going to give a nod to Ohio State. They have been playing extremely well, and they are a complete team. I know I hate them as much as the next humanly possible person could, but they are a complete team. I think I really liked how Georgia's they like you said, they haven't looked good, but they know how to beat it. It's almost like I said that earlier, it looks like they're playing with their food, at times, where, Auburn gave them a good run, and then all of a sudden they started kind of like handling business at the very end of the game. But I think I'm gonna go with at least 2 or 3 from the Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 just looks incredibly fast right now. I think that SEC's run to me is just kind of dwindling. I just don't see them as the big bad wolf anymore. Texas looks great too, where I think they're a solid team too. I think, like you said, NIL and portal has really changed up the game. And I would absolutely love for Miami to be the stake in the coffin for Clemson. In that next game after we beat them, they fly a banner over Death Valley of Fire Dabo. I would love to be the reason why they do it. So, yeah, I think if my 5, I'm going to go 2 from the Pac, Texas, Ohio State, and I'll throw Georgia in there. They're still talented all across the board.
Yeah, I would agree with you with the Pac-12. I almost said Pac-10. It used to be the Pac-10. I'm not crazy,
yeah,
right? Okay. Yeah. No, there's definitely you bring up Washington, and I mentally changed my top 5 a little bit. I might put Washington at 5, because you're right. They have been impressive. They have their quarterback is really talented. They got some, good skill guys. They're complete. So I would put them at number 5. I would definitely have, let's see, I might put Penn State as number 4. I know people are going to hate me for that, because, Manny's there, but whatever. And look, Penn State's damn good, man. They're complete.
Yeah. I kind of forgot about them. They're kind of boring, but they're solid.
Boring. Yeah, but they're dominating. Who else is really boring? Michigan. But you know what?
I still haven't seen them play anybody yet. They played Nebraska. Nebraska just looks lost in space. So I'm still waiting on Michigan, but I agree with that.
Yeah, but there is something to be said about if you've played 5 games already and none of the 5 games have been remotely close, like even for a second, like that consistency. I mean, that's what we,
right.
Aside from Texas A&M, we have beat one legitimate, like really good opponent. Michigan really hasn't. Their best team they played has been Rutgers, but Rutgers is not your grandpa's Rutgers. They're solid. Rutgers is much improved. So this would be my top 5. I would have Washington 5th, Penn State 4th, Texas 3rd, which I think is actually where they're at. Let me see.
Yeah.
AP, they're number 3. I think that's perfect. Michigan number 2 and Oregon number 1.
Yeah. I think Oregon's statement in that game with Colorado was that they can keep the gas on for 4 quarters. I think that's what was kind of like different about them this year than a couple of years in the past, is that they can get up on teams, but then they would let those teams right back in the game. They were kind of like what the USC team did, right? Where you got up, and then all of a sudden, 3rd quarter, the game's closer. And
they took their foot off the gas. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like, then they lose. Like, there was like an Oregon game a couple of years ago where like Stanford's down by like 38, and all of a sudden they're like, it's down to like the last second field goal, to win the game. Or I think Oregon might have lost the game actually, but it's just one of those. It was like one of those. Who is Oregon really like? If it's a 3-quarter game, they win every game. But if it's 4 quarters, you lose. I agree with that though. I think Oregon is probably the most dangerous. Bo Nix is just a hell of a quarterback too. So
that's why I just think they don't really have a lot of weaknesses. Like Georgia, I would not put Georgia in my top 5. I would maybe have them like 6th, like just outside of it, just because Georgia. They have Brock Bowers, who's a stud.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been super impressed with their quarterback play. Maybe we'll see better as the season goes. Maybe they've been very vanilla so far. But I just feel like their outside, their talent on the outside, it doesn't like scare me like other teams does. Their defense is solid, but their defense isn't like 7 first-rounders like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little drop off there.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I don't know if you kind of heard, like, so we were kind of talking to some of the SEC fans, and they kind of mentioned something that was really kind of made me think for a minute. Was one of the problems that they saw that Bama and Georgia had, where some of these guys weren't fully bought into the team. It was more about the NIL and they go into the league, and it was kind of like, huh. So it's almost like they have a culture problem, where it's kind of funny because it's like, well, these guys are so used to being so much better than everybody else on their schedule. Like you said, it wasn't even like they had 7 first-rounders. I mean, they could have like every guy on their line really go to the league at some point in time even if my team doesn't do that well, I don't care. I'm going to the league anyway, where that shift might be more of like, it's not great to have all that abundance of talent that's there before NIL, and now with NIL that kind of mixed a little differently. Because when's the last time if you're an SEC school, when's the last time you even had to check your culture? You've been winning so long, you probably haven't. So how do you know some of these guys' real intentions for your team? So I think that plays a big part. We'll see what they do.
Yeah. It's a funny thing because like I was thinking about this the other day. Like, you don't want to get, obviously, the money's got to be there if you want to get some of the top tier guys, but then you don't want to get, I mean, this goes like, I guess, across the board in sports, but especially in college, you don't want your entire team to be guys that are just there for this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely got to have to sprinkle in a few of those studs,
right?
The Jeremiah Smiths of the world that, it's like, hey, blank check, whatever you want, man. But, you got to have the culture guys too. That are like
exactly.
On the cane no matter what,
Absolutely. Like the prima donna cannot outweigh the hungry dog. You know what I mean? Like that ratio can't be out of whack. But to hear a Bama, longtime fan say that kind of threw me out because I'm kind of like, the first things you hear about Mario when he does these pressers about these guys is always about character first. He doesn't say, it's, about what they did in stats or this is what they could bring to our table. It's always about the personality and then the family and then what they want to do in football, and then he talks about their accolades elsewhere. But he understands that the foundation is the mind, where I rather have the dog who is like a Ruben Bain, where they have that chip on their shoulder because they wouldn't get that 5-star, versus a prima donna who's, if things don't go their way, they check themselves out of the game. You know what I mean? Like, that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look at what Matt says right here. Funny how year 3 Banner suddenly looks like everybody else. Yeah,
perfect way to put it.
Funny thing. I will say this though: every great coach out there, including Nick Saban, is saying what you just uttered. That it's character first. Character and culture and all that stuff's important. Every great coach talks about that. Butch Davis was big on that. Jimmy Johnson was big on that. I'm sure Howard Schnellenberger was. I didn't see a lot of his press conferences. I was not alive, but I'm sure he was big on that. So yeah. No, good point by Matt there. But we're 45 minutes in. Got 39 in the chat right now. Please hit that like button. Yeah. So overall, man, I'm feeling pretty good about this game against Georgia Tech. I know we all have the PTSD from 20 years in the ACC of getting, I don't even know what the right phrase is. Just like, are you effing kidding me? Year after year.
Letdown.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. That's a great word. The constant letdown, time after time after time in these conference games. But even with all that, I feel pretty good going to this game. My confidence level is like still, pretty high, 80 to 90%, but it's like, let's see what they do. How are you feeling overall about this game?
When you hang out with Lex on a weekly basis, you start drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit more and more.
Yeah.
But I will say, with listening to, because we do it, like, to be honest, I don't really watch TV anymore. I kind of just watch all the different shows now, and everybody has a really unique quality they all kind of bring to the table, but it's a different perspective each time too. And what I've liked is that everybody's hit on different reasons why Miami, and the reason of why not Miami is kind of starting to dwindle. It's kind of like you said, it's kind of been like the PTSD of like what we know that what could happen or should happen on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of gotten me to the point where I'm like 95% in, where it's like, there's always gonna be that fluke here and there, but this team is solid, man. Like, I just don't feel like the coaching staff is gonna let down the players, and I really don't feel like the players are gonna let down the staff. Where when you play for something bigger than just yourself, that makes you a dangerous damn entity. Where you're playing as a unit, you're not playing as you're one. And Arroyo coming back, McCormick in there, with Riley and then Carver in there. You got guys who are going to hype each other up. And they also are scared a little bit too, because there's a guy behind you that can take you out. It's like that old school Miami squad, where you didn't want to come out of a game because you knew that those guys behind you could easily step it up and make the big play, going forward. So I think that's my 5% more is that we have guys that are really playing for more than just, the name on the back of their jersey. They're playing for the logo on the front of the jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. As always, go catch Miami Mayhem show. You guys still do it every Monday night, right?
We're on Thursdays now at 8 o'clock.
Thursdays at 8.
Yeah, we switched it up.
All right, cool. So you heard them, Thursdays at 8. Go catch them. So you guys will be on tomorrow then.
Yep, we'll be on tomorrow for sure.
Nice. Very nice. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being on, man. Go follow them. Go hit that like button. Go hit it for all the videos. It's always great content. And see you guys soon. Go Canes. Beat G Tech.
Knock your stuff over.
Oh. Yes, very professional show. Go Canes.